Welcome to another episode in our 2025 APMM podcast series on PCC Local Time, where we talk with local government leaders from across Pennsylvania about what it really means to manage communities in today's changing world. Today, we're heading to Southeastern Pennsylvania to check in with three municipal managers: John Ernst from Lansdale Borough, Amanda Lafty, Assistant Manager at Upper Marion Township, and Dave Burman from Haverford Township. This roundtable brings together three different generations of local leaders, and the result is a lively, honest conversation. We dig into tough topics like the rise in housing instability, attracting a new generation to local government careers, the double-edged sword of social media, and that looming fiscal cliff we've been talking about. But we also surface creative ideas, fresh perspectives, and some practical wisdom that we hope will spark conversations in your own circles. I am your host, Nancy Hess, and I'm so glad you are here. So grab a coffee, settle in, and join us for this smart and engaging exchange. And don't forget to check the show notes for more on our guests. And sign up for the Friday newsletter while you're there. We begin with John, who shares what's been happening in his borough of Lansdale. Let's get started.
When we were talking about this via email and communicating, I appreciate Dave's response, when asking, what issues are not Q1 or quadrant urgent and important issues that we deal with on a daily basis. I think every community is different, but I think that many of us are dealing with some global issues that are always on the burner. Specifically here in Lansdale, I would say that some of those issues that I think are important are some of the ones that we have the hardest time either trying to solve or at least try to respond in such a way that we are being responsive. And I say right now we are dealing with the unhoused in our community parks and struggling with the conversation about taxpayers and their role in providing resources to the borough versus how to try and find an appropriate response to those who are unhoused, and how do we make sure our parks are usable without creating a sense of fear and unknown. And again, that's a global issue. I'm not sure it's solvable at the municipal level.
I want to clarify, John, is this in the last 10 years that this has emerged? I don't recall this being an issue when we did work together years ago.
In Lansdale Borough, it's probably been most notable since COVID or right before. It's starting to become a conversation you just can't get away from. It seems to come up at many different meetings, whether it's physical location or tools that help you start to deal with some of the issues, such as affordable housing. How do your zoning rules begin to change so that affordable housing can be something that is attractive for developers to provide? And of course, with a landlocked borough, we're 3 square miles and 19,000 residents. It's a pretty dense community. So there's not a lot of open land to build. Developers are always taking properties down and redeveloping them. That's one of the problems of deal.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're willing to talk about this, because for you to be talking about this issue, it gives a sense of how important the issue is across the state. It's not just happening in city. And I think that's important.
And Nancy, I would say all of us are aware that the Montgomery County commissioners are aware of this issue and are talking about it and trying to work with communities to address the issues.
Yeah. Interesting.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
John, do you think that's because you have 3 SEPTA stops there that people find it easy to get to Lansdale? Why do you think the issue is appearing there?
That is a good question. I think having rail and public transportation accessibility is important. But I also think that because we are a built-up community, we have a lot of resources here. We have a lot of nonprofit agencies located in town. We have county offices, healthcare services in town. And I think that a lot of people who are experiencing homelessness find themselves going to the location where they feel they can get help. Manna on Main Street is one of our kitchens providing food and services. Some of the other communities in the region, such as Norristown, Pottstown, Lansdale, I believe all find the same challenge because those experiencing homelessness end up in those centers because the resources are there for getting help. Whether they're effective or not is a different question, but the resources are there to try and get some help.
Yeah. We'll come back around.
Yeah, sure.
A little bit more. Amanda, do you want to present what's on your mind?
Sure. So I am newer to the field. I'm going into my 3rd year as an assistant manager, my 9th year in local government. And one of the things that I'm seeing as an issue is the change of workforce. As our populations are aging, so are the people who work for us. And I'm very fortunate to work in a community that has a lot of folks that have been there 30 plus years. But now they're all starting to retire, and the younger generation wants a different work-life balance. They want to be able to work from home. And some of these things aren't feasible for us in local government. One of the issues we're facing is attracting new talent who wants to work in local government. We put out job postings to get people applying, but when it comes to salary, we can't always compete with the private sector and lose a lot of good candidates. So one of the things I am really hoping to work on as I continue my career is growing the field in general and trying to reach more people to understand this is a good job. Working for local government has a lot of great things about it, but it might not be the same that most younger folks are looking for. So.
Yeah. That has certainly come up in the other discussions. And may I ask what generation you put yourself in?
Sure, I'm a millennial.
Are you millennial? Okay.
I'm a millennial. Yeah, I am 36 years old. I'm not afraid to, tell people that. So I am 36. So I am on the younger side in, my field of municipal management, but it's really cool to interact with people of different generations in this job.
Critical generation for being able to work both up and down. And I notice the millennials are really coming on. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Dave, why don't you give us your intro as well in terms of your top issue?
Sure. I am 55 and I'm feeling very old.
Yeah, I'm 66 and I'm feeling pretty old here. So
Sorry, guys. I didn't the attention.
Is that an X? Are you Generation X, technically speaking?
I think so, yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Seems
we
like
have
that's
3
cool.
generations. Amazing.
Good work. So right now we all have all kinds of challenges, and I'm going to go simple. We are negotiating our collective bargaining agreement with our civilian workforce.
Yep.
And so it's a real challenge for a lot of the reasons that Amanda talked about, where we need to attract and retain people, but we just have a really hard time competing. We happen to be right next door to Lower Merion Township. We lose employees occasionally to Lower Merion because they have more resources than we do. So that's a real challenge. But we also compete with private industry, and that's a challenge as well. I mean, we can't match those wages that people can earn in private industry, but I do think we have a lot to offer in terms of culture and the way we operate and the way we, even though we're a pretty large organization compared to some municipalities, we have a good family value system here, and we do care about each other. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. But I think you also, in your discussion, wanted to see what quadrant that we would be in. We're still a little bit early on the negotiating, and we're hopefully going to wrap up very soon. The contract expires 12/31. So I would say it is very important, but not necessarily urgent just yet, because we have a little bit of time, but we've been working hard in a very collaborative manner with our collective bargaining unit. And so I think we're headed in the right direction. And again, we'll be at quadrant 2, not urgent, but still important.
Yeah. It's on the horizon. Maybe, Amanda, to check with you, would you put yours in quadrant 1, quadrant 2?
To say quadrant 2, we have started seeing retirements and turnover in my municipality. This is going to be a long-term strategy more than just moving quickly to fill seats.
Let's just circle back to John and ask if this resonates with him. I think I know the answer, but give us your perspective just on what you've heard Dave and Amanda talk about.
So, Nancy and I have talked a couple of times in the past. I'll say in the past 2 years, I have had some turnover at the department head level to maybe five, I would say 5 different department heads, 2 of them finance directors, which is one of the hardest roles to find good candidates for at the municipal level. We've had to strategize about how the organization is organized. Every time we find ourselves with an opening, we ask ourselves, are we looking at the organizational structure? Are we replacing a candidate for every opening? Or are we looking at how to restructure the organization so that we're more efficient and economical, hiring for the role we need, not the role we have? Just because we have a public works director doesn't mean that we need to replace that public works director. Maybe there's some role that becomes an overlap or a hybrid of public works and codes or something, whatever it might be. So we've taken a look at the structure of how we've been organized, and we've shuffled the deck with some department heads. We've had overlapping roles, and then we've had some roles that we've had to fill that we weren't really sure that we needed that role until someone's doing it. And wow, that's a great spot. Why didn't we have this person before? It's a challenge. And I think, as Amanda hinted at it, with the longevity of the workforce, losing historical knowledge is a huge challenge. I'm coming from an organization here in Lansdale that's similar to Amanda with the longevity of employees. I have 3 employees that have been here for 50 years, 50. And it's one person started right out of high school, and they have been here since that. And that creates a challenge as well monetarily, because now you've got a 50-year employee doing bookkeeping, making $85,000 a year. And you look at that and you're thinking, what the heck? How did this happen? But anyway, yeah, so those employment, the succession planning are all challenges that I think we're all facing at different levels.
Yeah. John, you have done a great job of putting your social media campaign is, I think, hits the mark in terms of the right tone. I see different examples of the work around the borough, but I want to just play with that a little bit in terms of 2 things. One, I say discoverability, like people that when you put them into social media posts, I think they feel discovered, seen. And there's a resonance, like when people are checking you out, let's say now you've posted a job opening and now people are going to go find out what's happening at Burman. I think they see that as appealing. I'm learning. That's an important decider factor, is for some people, not everyone.
Yeah.
So, also people don't understand the work. It's actually really good work. I wrote about this in the newsletter lately about Michael Lewis writing What is Government? It's getting so much coverage. And the main thrust is like, who would have thought that these jobs would be so interested? And one thing he says is they're mission focused. People are doing things not because they get paid a lot, but because they're doing important work for the community. I'm curious where you guys sit with that. I know the rubber meets the road at your desk, and you have to basically figure out the pay issue, and you have to figure out how to get those people. Any success stories or feedback on those issues, use of social media and recruiting, or,
Dave, do you want to take?
We use Indeed and LinkedIn for recruiting. About a year, our IT department created a video about the township that I believe there's a link that should be with each of our job postings.
It's a good idea.
I do not post much on LinkedIn or any social media. It's a major commitment. And I'd love to do it, but I'm just not prepared to make that commitment right now. I don't have the time to be focused on that. And I don't have the faith in myself to stay committed. That's my involvement in social media.
just to be switched back to John for a moment, because I see John's posts on
They're
LinkedIn.
great.
And I don't know, are you posting those, John, or do you have somebody working with you?
I get a lot of inspiration from my colleagues. When we scroll LinkedIn, we see what our colleagues are posting and what's important to communities. On LinkedIn, I post all my own stuff. And I try to post and make it sound as if I'm the one talking. You can actually hear me saying those words. But
Yeah.
it's important to me to post about the people doing the work in Lansdale versus not necessarily. I mean, we all are successful at grants. We all have successful road projects and park projects, but I like to try to congratulate the employees that do the work. Lansdale is really about people. I take great pride, and some of my most favorite posts are when I get a chance to show flags of the sports teams in Philadelphia that are going to the playoffs, because it's about the culture of the environment to allow us to do that stuff instead of, hey, we just got another grant. But this is about the people. If you're going to work for Lansdale, I'd like to give you a sense of what's important to us and join the team type of thing.
Yeah. I think LinkedIn is discoverable for most people, but when I think about Dave's issue with the collective bargaining agreements, that might be another level of reach, which I'm not sure they would necessarily find you on LinkedIn. You're on the right track, John. Amanda, how would you weigh in?
From Upper Marion's perspective, a lot of what we post is very informational. It doesn't really leave a lot of wiggle room for negative comments. A lot of our posts are cross-posted throughout all of our social media channels. We use Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky. Now, I personally am a big fan of using social media to reach out to residents. It's one of the easier ways to communicate. It's very expensive to mail things to folks. We have e-newsletters, and I'm sure Dave and John both have those as well. We make sure that we add all of our jobs that are open to those as well. So that's a different way of reaching them as well. But I really like John's, idea about talking about the people that work there and promoting them. I think that's something I would like to do more frequently. I am not in charge of social media for our township. Shout out to Tiffany, who does a fantastic job coming up with content.
Let me ask you, Amanda, maybe you could respond to what Dave was saying for employees from Gen Z or younger millennials looking for jobs that might be part of the collective bargaining agreement. They may not be lurking on LinkedIn. What are they doing to look for jobs? What are you learning about the job-seeking interests of the up-and-coming generation into the workforce?
I think it's honestly a mixed bag. I see a lot of folks who find out about positions by word of mouth. LinkedIn is huge, sharing posts from different folks that are hiring in this community goes a long way. Personally, when I see different positions come up that are appropriate for people I've worked with in the past, I'll reach out and say, hey, just saw this opportunity. If interested, let me know and I can make that connection for you. I think younger generations use LinkedIn and job search engines, but there's something to be said about personal connection, especially in local government. Dave, John, and I had lunch on Friday, and the topic of conversation always comes to different municipalities, and it's amazing all of the people we've worked with or know in this field. So I think I try to groom the younger folks to come to more events, to meet more people so that they can have those opportunities to make connections as well.
I think the people connection interests me. In general, younger generations need some structure to help them kind of get together. So having opportunities to mix and to be connected seems to be something that is really valued. Yeah, as you said. And to Dave's point, when you are a workplace that people identify as, whether you call it a family-oriented or just connected type of workplace, I think that also is something that gets around word of mouth. I'd like to swing back to John's topic because I want to find out, Amanda or David are experiencing any of the issues that, as he described them, homeless in the parks or other kinds of changes or issues that you're dealing with now.
I can speak to that a little bit. Homelessness is a housing problem. There are issues with substance use disorder and mental health disorders as well. We in Southeast Pennsylvania have such a small housing stock currently. And what we do have is not affordable anymore. And I think that it's difficult for municipalities to kind of step in and create the affordable housing. We're not developers. We can only write our zoning codes and hope that we can attract some different development to house people. We don't have a major unhoused population, but we do have people who may not be living in the park, but they are couch surfing with friends. They do not have permanent, stable housing. And I think homelessness can be seen at different levels. It's not just a cut and dry living outside versus having a home. There's a lot of instability with any type of housing currently.
That's a good point. Couch surfing, living in cars, things like that. And
Yeah.
It is a really good point. We just updated our comprehensive plan, and there were lots of things that we struggled with. It was a tough process. But one of the things is the moment someone reads affordable housing, certain constituents get really upset
Mhm.
about that.
Yep.
And I didn't know it was such a trigger. So I'm learning that as I go. And we will be updating our zoning ordinance, which, a complete rewrite. And that's going to be a real key issue that I fully expect some exciting conversations.
I'll jump in and say we talk about NIMBYism a lot, not in my backyard in local government. This is one of the key issues. People want to see unhoused individuals in homes, but they don't want it in their community.
Right.
I think there's a lot of misinformation out of these situations, and it's very unfortunate that such community pushback could stop projects like John has in Lansdale at the rehab for after work location. Is that short-term housing?
It's short-term housing. It'll be opening up in August. And one of the challenges is people feel that it's a homeless shelter. And unfortunately, it's really not. You have to be interviewed and you have to meet certain criteria to be accepted into the program. And it's a short-term program to help people get back on their feet and to transition into the workplace. It's not like you can just walk in and have a place to live. I mean, there's a
Right.
specific program. Nancy, this topic could take 3 or 4 different podcasts,
Certainly
each
could.
looking at a different aspect.
But I think that's what we can tease out right here.
Yeah.
Because hit on that short-term rental is a whole separate subject.
Oh, sure.
And that actually goes into getting ready for the big events near Philadelphia.
Mhm.
Then there is and RJ Sesko and Ben Estelle did an episode with me on zoning, which is really good. Both have taught me a lot. Ben about Euclidean zoning laws and RJ about the ways you can change zoning to address, and I've heard this from clients, community wants to be able to house multi-generations on their land. Like, housing, the discussion is what does that open the door for? Because there's another municipality right next to me they have a high immigrant population. How many families are living inside this house?
Sure.
You can see variations of what could happen. I am not a zoning person, but maybe you could, from your own perspectives, just identify, like, is this something that you also see as a discussion point, something that's going to be part of your own community discussions in terms of, zoning? I think it all comes under zoning or ordinances that pertain to how housing is used.
In Lansdale, we're looking at opportunities. One of the first things we did a number of years ago was we allowed what's called an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU, to be added to a property. You could have a small structure on your property. The only caveat was it needs to be a family member. You can't rent out a shed or a garage with power, a bathroom, to anybody. The tie is that it's a family member. We're looking at changing our density requirements. So if you provide more units per acre, the theory is that you could provide enough of a quota of the higher end pricing or the higher end affordable that they will be taken up, and those who need something in the lower end will fill in the bottom tiers of housing because you've saturated the market with the upper level. I'm not so sure if I agree because it's not dense enough for that to happen.
What stops any of the landlords from raising the prices of the lower tier
Yep.
housing? That's what we see in King of Prussia. New things get built, they're very expensive, and the older things just rise in cost.
You can live in Lansdale for $2,300 a month in an apartment. That's more than some people's mortgage.
I'm hearing that from employees who say, I could not live here now. I live here now because I've been here for a long time, but I could not move, what they're saying. And that has to be impacting the first thing we talked about, which is getting a workforce, because they may not be close or able to live close to you. So it's very central, housing.
I'll take this opportunity to plug SEPTA and the issues that they are having in getting funding. And it's a real concern for us in Upper Marion. We have the King of Prussia Mall where thousands use public transit to get to work. If they don't have access to that, what happens to the mall? What happens to all the restaurants? They are a big part of our economic impact. It's scary to think it could go away or at least lessen to the fact that it wouldn't be as usable, or as I'm tripping over my words, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Speaking of SEPTA, they're going by my office right now. So if you hear the train whistle, you know you're in Lansdale. Every 10 minutes, there's a train that goes by.
We know you're really in the office. Yeah, there is so many ways that we could go with this. There's a discussion about demographics and declining birth rates, and you're thinking, well, how does this fit with the housing crisis? Is there the fact that people can't find affordable housing, so they're not raising families? It's a perplexing conundrum. Let's go on to other subjects and see what else comes up. Now, under the list of topics that came up at APMM, I don't know if any of them stood out. One was the consolidation, regionalization of services, paid fire services, contracts for managers, which I think we're going to get another podcast episode on. There was talk at that conference on the fiscal cliff and how people are addressing or thinking about that. We've talked about professional development and zoning reform and issues driving community and board engagement. Any of those issues stand out that you want to add to the discussion?
I'll tell you, the fiscal cliff is a real concern, probably less of a concern for municipalities that have the earned income tax, but still a concern. We don't have the earned income tax.
Neither do we.
Good.
It's a challenge because you can't provide the same or better service without increasing costs. At some point, you just can't do it. If you're relying solely on property taxes or largely on property taxes as we are, you're just not going to be able to keep pace with the increasing costs. And so in the absence of the earned income tax, there is a real fiscal cliff on the horizon, especially for distressed municipalities. We're fortunate we're in the Philadelphia region and we're doing okay. I worry about a lot of the municipalities that are facing that real challenge about not having enough revenue to cover their costs.
We're seeing decreases in grant funding with the current political climate. Nothing is set in stone. So there are concerns not having an EIT can cause issues if relying on property taxes. Fortunately for Upper Marion, we have a very robust commercial area, so we have a lot of business privilege taxes. But I think a lot of communities are trying to see how they can diversify their income so that they can keep up, with their facility maintenance. Old and aging infrastructure needs to be replaced. It's not cheap. We have our own public safety department where we have career firefighters and EMS. It takes over 5 years to get a $1 million fire truck. You pay it up front and receive it in 4 years. It's very expensive to run a township.
I think it's interesting as I hear my colleagues talk, we're all dealing with the same issues, but coming at it from different ways. In Lansdale, we do have an EIT, but we're also one of the 35 communities in the state that has public power. So when you pay your electric bill every month, you pay it to Lansdale Electric. You don't pay PICO, you don't pay PP&L, but that comes with a price as well. I mean, we transfer about $4.5 million out of that general fund from electric into services for the borough to pay for pools, police, and things like that. But it's also a huge infrastructure, transformers, all of our power lines, staff. We have about 12 linemen and all the equipment that goes along with servicing that electric system. If we did not have the electric department, we would have to raise taxes 145% to cover the expenses. Our tax base is fairly low, but the expenses are somewhat high to keep the equipment maintained, things like that.
I want to do an episode, John, on public management versus privatization of utilities. There is a lack of awareness of what's happening across the state with the increasing privatization. I don't want to weigh in as biased, but I do have a bias towards, run public utility. There's a benefit in the long term, but it can't always happen. And most people don't see is the increasing privatization across the state and the impact that has on fees. So now you find yourself, as the local government is less and less revenue, you see the revenue going up for utility companies.
Sure. Hopefully, Jeff, when you get to that point, Jeff will be part of that conversation.
Yeah, I had him in mind. But what can you do? If it's privatized, you don't have a voice anymore. In your control, they can charge you.
And I think we have been approached by selling our sewer plant. We haven't been approached for our electric, but certainly our sewer plant. And I think we all know different communities that have gone down that road of selling their sewer plant. That's a one-time infusion of cash. Sell your sewer plant for $25 million. And while it sounds like a lot of money, it's really not when you have to look about replacing all your services or buying a new municipal building. And at the end of the day, you have municipal customers that aren't really happy with their new provider because the rates are going through the roof, more so than the rates that they had before ever did.
Greg Prin brought up in the roundtable the MS4, and I'm not able to speak to that as clearly as I might like to, but I just wonder if you have that pressure on the eastern side of the state. His solution was that the state should take over all the mandated MS4 costs. He thinks that we should be lobbying for that at the state association level.
We do have those challenges here. I don't know what the new permit's going to look like. We have these permit requirements to reduce sediment and pollution runoff. One project that wouldn't even come close to satisfying our requirements is ballpark $250,000. It's just incredible, the expectations placed on municipalities. And again, that goes back to the fiscal cliff. That's a service that none of us planned for 10, 15 years ago, really, to have to do this level of MS4 work. It's a real challenge. Greg may have a good point. The state could take that over. I don't think it's realistic, because what politician is going to accept more responsibility? What elected official is going to say, yeah, let me be the one to raise taxes?
I like the idea of some of these issues getting more in the public range of awareness.
Part of the MS4 requirement is an educational component.
Yeah.
And so we do that. I would say a lot of municipalities, including this one, are not always good at communicating and engaging, especially on topics that are that complex. But you're right. Outreach is an important part of what we do. And certainly we're supposed to be engaging and educating the community on our stormwater management requirements.
Yeah. Move on to our one wild, crazy idea. Each of you are allowed one. And it comes with the promise that it will happen. A law or a change with the wave of a wand. Who's the most bold?
When we had lunch last week, I wasn't sure what I would say, but I had time to think this weekend. Personally, if I had a magic wand, I would require every adult to take a local government class. Every adult had to learn about the functions of local government, what we can and cannot do for them, understanding what the process is for land development and where their tax dollars go. I feel like a lot of folks have no idea, and it's one of my biggest frustrations in local government, trying to educate the public on what we do.
I used to get it in high school.
No, I took a government class, but it was mostly geared toward federal government and maybe a little bit of state. I didn't understand the structure when I was in high school, but even as a younger adult, if you told me 15 years ago I'd be an assistant township manager, I'd ask you what that was, because I have no clue.
Sometimes we just don't have the questions until we get older. Later on, you start asking about, why is this huge development happening? We don't like change. We want to know what's going on.
I think that ties into what you were talking about earlier about educating people via social media. As the four of us sit here, we all understand that while the concept or the initiative sounds fairly simple, they are really complex.
They are.
I have so many moving parts that impact everything that touches that initiative. And trying to work that through and trying to explain that clearly and concisely to the general public is a challenge. Not that they're not going to understand it, but I mean, who has the time to digest it all? I mean, we deal with this day in and day out. So we're very familiar with the nuances and the intricacies. But trying to explain that to the general public it becomes a real challenge, which leads me to my magic wand regarding social media. I wish when a municipality posted on social media that it was clearly understood, it was clearly accepted. Everybody who looked at it and read it thought it was a great idea. They didn't feel the need to debate about it or ask its merits. They thought it had absolutely the most strongest opinion to move forward with it with no questions asked. And why didn't you do this sooner type of thing, instead of the back and forth debate about what are you thinking? That's a stupid idea. I mean, you don't even know if it's anybody in your own community who's responding. So that's a challenge, I think, for us.
I can ask you a question. In the
I'm asking, Nancy, I'm asking you.
the predisposition of those on media, the magic happens before you even open social media. You're already there. You're like ready to engage positive, constructive way. That's a pretty cool thing. Maybe we could talk to AI about it.
Yeah.
Some attitude changing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I feel really bad because I was going to say there should be no social media. For
It
Ed,
has,
you
but-
said earlier, you said it's easier to engage with someone in person.
Yes.
I mean, even this, we're not in person, but we're speaking together as human beings. When you're behind a keyboard, who knows if that person's been drinking or whatever. Half of them are just making jokes about everything. It's difficult to deal with because of that. I don't post and I don't look at it. And it's a real struggle because all that nonsense and negativity that's out there is, if you could just wave the magic wand and get rid of the social media, we could deal as human beings again. I would appreciate that.
Yeah. It's a
Number
big
one
engage.
rule is don't read the comments when it comes to social media.
Yeah.
There's something in there, Dave. If we could push that idea further, because something needs to take its place, like more in-person gathering, we have to make that happen. Slow down, right? Fridays are instead of dress down day, it's dress down and together with people day. Like you have to engage with people every Friday. No social media, but to engage on days with people outside your own. I wouldn't be adverse to changing social media. Yeah, it has changed our lives dramatically. There was a recent podcast on PCC Local Time with Mike Baumwall, who has a different approach on communication. I think he's got some really great ideas coming at human-centered ways to communicate with the public. So you're in charge of your media, and it's coming from your website, and you're addressing it. But I think he's upskilling us as professionals to make our communication more authentic, which he's quite good at. The other one Greg mentioned was Sam Tolles, who I'm not as familiar with his work, but I think he has some presence in working with local governments on their social media. I can't really say more, but I think the communication piece is critical. Social media is not the answer for sure, but that brings us to the end of this session. Are there any topics that we maybe didn't get to that you'd like to close with that seems important to mention?
One of the things that you talked about, that list of a few topics that were at APMN, talked about it a little bit here with succession planning and filling roles. As I was struggling with filling some of the roles that I had open, I was really debating about the opportunity for having certain roles in municipal government be almost like circuit rider roles, where a municipality might share like a finance director.
Of that.
I know there's conversations about professional managers. Professional manager works for 2 or 3 communities contracted. And maybe there's an opportunity for some of our other professional positions to be shared among different municipalities in an effort to become economical. I think it also helps department heads keep initiative. If they're going to different municipalities, it's not the same thing every day. Different community, but there might be some opportunity for some shared services there.
I like that.
Yeah, sorry. Go
I was
ahead, Matt.
going to say I've worked for 3 municipalities in my short tenure in local government, and every place does something different. When I go to a new place, sometimes I think, oh, this is a much better way to do this. Or I can bring an idea of something I did previously. If we had more overlap, like John said, sharing roles, or at least having, I don't know, we have a managers consortium in Montgomery County where we get together and talk. Having more overlap between municipalities would be a good way to share those ideas and actually, maybe make other municipalities' lives easier.
I'm thinking about more intentional placement that might improve pay for some. Let's do the finance director one. Wait, I know Dave had top-notch financial director. If there was a possibility of being on that, kind of like a circuit rider, but in an intentional way, spending time with different municipalities, you're bringing up the level and talking with the manager. I think a lot of managers, and John, you and I had a conversation about this, like what is it that the manager needs to be doing in terms of engaging with the finance department to make sure that you're on the same page, you understand what's all, happening there. I really like that idea because it seems to address if you could also pay them at a higher level to do that kind of work, but you'd have shared. I've heard of a few managers that have worked at, they're like that. They have different municipalities and make good money.
You make a good point from my perspective. We're a Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, over 2,500 municipalities, and everyone's doing something different. Some do it better, some do it different. Always isn't always better, but the overlap, good opportunities for learning and seeing what other folks are up to. But one of the things we didn't talk about, the potential for not just shared services, but consolidation. We see it in the fire company world and the volunteer firefighter world. And in some cases, it may be appropriate in the municipal world. Really difficult because everybody's got their little fiefdom and power and insecurities, right? I mean, you said Amy is top notch, and I don't want her going over to Lansdale to get poached.
You're treating her very well.
Oh, darn.
But she could. I think that the more mature professionals would enjoy that challenge to be able to say, would you let me go for so many days the next 6 months to go work with this other municipality so that I get to upskill other ways within your region? You do a little bit of that. I think there are a lot of professionals that would find that rewarding.
Actually, this winter, I'm going to go down to Florida and try and intern down there.
There you go.
Nice.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Dave, do you mind me? I could take this out if you don't want to talk about it, but did this come out of your leadership series at Penn State?
So I am participating in the Rural Urban Leadership Program at the Penn State Extension. It's very interesting. And yes, there's a lot to be said for struggling municipalities that should share services. It's not a municipal management program, but about the communities and the way they operate across the Commonwealth. It's very interesting. I think some of my thinking has changed a little over the last year, but not sure what more I could say about that.
That's not where your internship in Florida came from.
No, that was just sarcasm. And I'd like to do.
The executive director of the County Commissioners Association came from the Rural Appalachia program.
Oh, is that right?
I don't know if it's the program specifically, but the larger state association for rural areas. I just saw it on LinkedIn. I don't even have his name right now, but
I was going to ask.
I'll send it to you.
I saw that job. It did look interesting.
Dave, I would love to have you over here. That would have been wonderful. I am going to reach out to him. It's a very good topic. And maybe I could circle back with you. You might have some contacts from your program. I think there needs to be a podcast episode or series on rural communities and how they're dealing with the future.
Yeah.
I feel like we've left them out of the PCC local time conversations. And so
Incredible how diverse the state is in terms of the types of communities.
you guys are tremendous. This has been a great conversation. I'll do some highlights and get the highlight reel on LinkedIn with the link to the full episode. Hopefully this week, I think that'll happen, but I can't promise it. But I'd like to see you all in person sometime. So
Next lunch.
Yes, definitely.
I mean,
Yeah.
Located, Nancy?
I'm in Hershey.
Okay, it's not too far.
Yeah, I get out there now and then. Lots to talk about. I appreciate you bringing your best game here today.
Thanks for thinking of me, Nancy. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Glad we
I
could.
Yeah, good to see you. Terrific. Thank you. Have a
Thank you,
great
Dylan.
week.
You guys.
Everyone,
Come on.
take
Yep.
care.
We'll be in
It was a
touch.
pleasure.